What if just one decision you made as a kid could completely change your financial future? Puts you on a path to either wealth or a lifetime of struggling. Well, today we're going to dive deep into Rich Dad, Poor Dad to pull out the one lesson that kicked everything off. And here's the crazy part. It wasn't taught in some stuffy classroom. Nope. It was learned through a really frustrating, super low-paying job that was actually designed to feel like a trap. So at the heart of this whole story, you've got these two really powerful father figures, and each one of them is offering a totally different blueprint for how to live your life. First, there's his actual father, who he calls his poor dad. Now, this guy was smart, had a great education, a good, steady government job, but he always seemed to be struggling with money. And then on the other side, you have his best friend's father, the rich dad. This guy was an entrepreneur, and he was out there literally building an empire. And when it came to money, whoa. Their philosophies were polar opposites. They couldn't have been more different. His poor dad always said that the love of money is the root of all evil. He genuinely believed it was this corrupting force. But Rich Dad, he just flipped that whole idea right on its head. He'd say, no, the lack of money, that's the root of all evil. He saw it as the real cause of all the fear and struggle in the world. And you could see this massive difference in the simple words they used every single day. Poor Dad's go-to phrase was always, "I can't afford it." And that's a statement, right? It's a mental dead end. It just shuts your brain down. But Rich Dad, he taught him to ask a question instead. How can I afford it? Just that one simple switch from a statement to a question, it forces your brain to wake up and start working. It turns you from a bystander into a problem solver. So here he is, just 9 years old, standing at this massive crossroads. And he makes a choice that's going to define the rest of his life. He decides he's going to learn about money from his rich dad. And it wasn't just because he wanted fancy cars or a big house. He was genuinely desperate to figure out the mindset, the way of thinking that actually makes wealth possible in the first place. Okay, so that one decision leads him straight into his very first lesson about creating wealth. But here's the thing. This wasn't going to be some cozy chat or a lecture in a classroom. Oh, no. It was designed from the ground up to be a real-world, hands-on, and, intentionally frustrating experience. And Rich Dad laid it out pretty bluntly. His terms were, let's say, unconventional. The lesson wasn't going to be about theories or books. It was a simple take it or leave it deal. You work, I teach. The real world was going to be their classroom, and the price of admission? Good old-fashioned hard work. So the job starts, and what's the job? Every single Saturday, for 3 long hours, he and his friend Mike are in one of Rich Dad's little convenience stores, just dusting canned goods, over and over. And for this totally mind-numbing work, they're getting paid a measly 10 cents an hour. Come on. Weeks go by, and there are no lessons, no secret talks about money, just this growing feeling that, hey, maybe we're just being used as super cheap labor here. So after 3 hours of work, what did they have to show for it? 30 cents. That's it. Just enough to go buy a couple of comic books. And that little reward, it almost made it worse, right? It just hammered home how little their time and effort were actually worth. But what they didn't know yet was that this feeling of being underpaid and totally undervalued, that was a crucial part of the lesson. So finally, after weeks of this, he just snaps. He can't take it anymore. He marches right up to Rich Dad, totally ready to quit, feeling completely used and just plain angry. And that's it. That emotional explosion was the exact trigger Rich Dad had been waiting for all along. Now, the real lesson could finally begin. But instead of getting defensive or arguing back, Rich Dad just calmly looks at him and asks this one simple question. See, he had deliberately let their frustration build up to a boiling point. Why? Because he knew that real, lasting learning, that often happens right at the edge of frustration. And that's when he introduced them to this concept, a name for the trap that he saw almost every adult fall into. He called it the rat race. And you know the one. It's that endless, grinding cycle. You wake up, you go to work, you pay your bills, and you do it all over again the next day and the next. It's a life, he said, that's completely controlled by 2 very powerful core emotions. So what are those 2 emotions? Well, think of them as the 2 engines that power this whole race. The first one is fear. It's that gnawing fear of not having enough money to pay the bills. That's what gets you out of bed and into a job you might not even like. And the second engine? That's desire. Once you get that paycheck, you start seeing all the nice things you could buy, a new phone, a better car, a vacation, and that's what keeps you spending everything you earn. And this is what creates that classic pattern, right? You get a job because of fear. You earn some money. Then you spend that money because of desire. And before you know it, you need more money again. And here's the kicker that Rich Dad pointed out. Getting a raise or a higher paying job, that doesn't actually solve the problem. Most of the time, it just makes the race faster. More income just leads to more expenses, and you're still stuck on that same wheel. All right, so if a bigger paycheck isn't the answer, then what is? I mean, how do you actually escape? How do you get off this hamster wheel for good? Well, Rich Dad's answer was surprisingly simple. He said the way out isn't about working harder or running faster. The escape route is through your mind. It's all about learning to think differently. And he laid out the path to get there. It all starts when you stop letting those two emotions, fear and desire, call the shots. You have to stop just reacting and chasing that next paycheck like it's a carrot on a stick. Instead, you have to force yourself to step back, take a breath, and actually think. Use that amazing brain of yours to spot the opportunities that everyone else is just too busy and too scared to see. And then, to really drive this point home, Rich Dad did something that must have seemed crazy. He made them a new offer. He said, okay, you're going to keep working for me, but now for free, zero pay. By yanking that carrot away completely, he was forcing their brains to look for answers beyond just earning a wage. He was pushing them to figure out how to create money for themselves, basically out of thin air. And this right here, this is the core lesson. It's probably the most important idea in the whole book. The real goal isn't to climb the ladder and get a higher paying job. No, the goal is to use your mind to build things, assets, businesses, investments that generate money on their own. You want to get to the point where your money is working hard for you, so you don't have to spend your entire life working hard for it. And that brings us to the big question Rich Dad's first lesson leaves every single one of us with. You have to ask yourself, right now, in your own life, is your money working for you, or are you working for money? Are you stuck in that cycle, running because of fear and chasing because of desire? Because the answer you come up with, well, it does more than just affect your bank account. It pretty much defines the entire pattern of your life.